Welcome. Welcome. I'm Paul Sugarman, and this is the Instant Shakespeare Company. And today we're just sort of talking a little bit about Shakespeare.
Welcome.
And excuse me, I've got my other stupid window open. Sorry about that. This is the Instant Shakespeare Company, which we're getting close to completing our 24th season of reading all of Shakespeare's plays every year. And so next year we will do our 25th season of reading all of Shakespeare's plays. And why do we do it? We do it because it's fun, basically. And because we can always benefit from reading Shakespeare, and even with some of the plays that are not some of my favorites, but doing them over and over again over the years, there's always something to find in them, and there's always something new to explore. I mean, I think one of parts of the reasons of the durability of Shakespeare is that you can find different things in him, and that's why we can have so many good performances in the same role that are very different, that are very distinctive. So many different Hamlets, so many different Richard III, so many different Lears, and that's part of what makes it so great. So, and we also we have a couple of people here with us tonight. Steve Capra, who's actually in the very first season of Instant Shakespeare when it started way back in 2000 at the old Applause bookstore on 71st Street, which I was briefly part owner of. And this was one of the highlights was when we did the reading of all 36 plays in the first folio in 12 days, as part of what was then known as the Applause Shakespeare Marathon, which has now sort of transformed into the Instant Shakespeare Company. And so we've done at least all of the plays in the folio every year since. Mostly after that, we've done them at various places. We've done them at the Drama Bookshop. We've done them at various churches and places. But really, the New York Public Library has mostly been our home for that. The various branches where we've been able to do the readings in person. And then after COVID, of course, we couldn't do it in person anymore. So we had to find another way to do it, and we now can do it on Zoom. And so we do both. We do in-person readings. Mark was just in a reading we did of that we had helped through with First Flight Theater of Maxwell Anderson's What Price Glory. And next week we have this Saturday in Brooklyn at the Walt Whitman Library a reading of Romeo and Juliet, and then we'll be concluding our season next week with Winter's Tale and a Zoom reading on next Thursday, and then an in-person reading of Cymbeline at the Yorkville Library. So that we will then have read all of Shakespeare's plays, and in addition to reading Shakespeare's plays, we collaborate with other companies such as First Flight Theater, who do a lot of Maxwell Anderson plays, and so we've done that. They've been really great things. I think it's great that Maxwell Anderson is a really terrific playwright who doesn't get the attention he deserves, and so it's good that we're able to do readings of his plays, and it's great to be working with Frank Farrell and First Flight Theater. And we also have the Shaw Project and David Cedar, which it's really been wonderful having their Zoom presentations usually every month or so, and we're very excited that they're going to be continued doing that in the new year as well. And we also have the Molière Rendezvous with Simone Kunrad doing the readings of the plays of Molière, which is good. And we also are open. We did a reading of a play by Kitty Chen last year, and we've done readings of plays by my father, and we will be doing more readings of plays by my father, and so we're happy to sort of do other plays that are well, Shakespeare. We do all of Shakespeare, but then also anything else kind of that somebody wants to do that's even in the public domain, or like a playwright who has something they want to do, that we have the permission of the playwright, we'll do that. So those are the sorts of limitations, which is, pretty much Shakespeare, and everything is a lot of most of our theatrical history. So,
Paul, how many of the Shakespeare's have you published in your pocket books?
Oh, I've published all of the plays, all 36 plays in the first folio. I haven't gotten through all of the quartos yet, but I do have a number of the quartos published, including 2 different quartos for Hamlet, the bad quarto and the good quarto. And
I can attest to that.
yes, and the varying lengths of the 2 of those.
Mm-hmm.
That too.
But so yeah, and we do have other ideas as well that people are suggesting for things that we're going to do. Other people who've got plays that we may do, and also because we also sometimes collaborate with play readings with friends with John Peacock. I don't know if you're aware of that group, but that's a group as well that does readings of new plays with friends. It does a lot of Zoom readings. It also does in-person readings as well. And so that's so that we're open to doing that. The sort of format in which we do these things, organize these things, is there's a playmaster who's in charge of sort of putting the reading together, choosing the script, choosing the actors, and getting it cast, and then we come together and do it either in person or on Zoom. So and so we have these. I try and do these open forums once a month to give people an opportunity to share some Shakespeare, or also to share some thoughts on Shakespeare. And that's what we're going to do today. So, who has something they'd like? Does anyone have any comments, or would they something they'd like to share? Or
I have a question for you, Steve. So you were involved really early on. Any particular memories of doing those readings? Paul says you crammed a whole lot of them into a short period of time.
Three a day. Yes. I don't remember it well, but it was great fun to do one and then another.
Okay.
So cool.
What's your feeling about now, and Paul, you should talk about this too, adhering to doing the first folio text rather than modern texts? Because that's a big thing about instant Shakespeare readings. We do the first folio text, which can differ greatly from modern texts.
yeah, well, I mean, I think that yes, you do raise a very good point, and that has always been central to it. As I said, we did the 36 plays in the first folio in 2000, and part of the reason we did that was because we at Applause were working on publishing Neil Freeman's the first folio of Shakespeare in modern type, and and so I was sort of curious as to because there's a lot of ideas about how much the first folio can help actors in terms of clues for the actors embedded in the text, and the 2 people who really have been most recently the very strong sort of champions of that are Patrick Tucker and Neil Freeman. And Neil Freeman is who I met at Shakespeare and Company from his work there as a consultant and showing how potent it can be in terms of the clues that you can get from the first folio. So we did that, and that's part of the idea of like sort of doing it that first time. It's like, okay, well, let's see if this really works. We gave people a lot of times. We were publishing both his individual editions of all of the plays, as well as the collected edition, which of course I don't have one handy to me at the moment. And so sometimes we had like pages like this that we'd give them, but other times we just had the sort of printed out versions of the pages from the first folio, which are, I mean, this is from the earlier band applause facsimile, where you see that folio has these double columns because it was
that is terrific. It's up on my bookshelf.
Yes. Yes, and so that is so. Yeah, Mark, thank you very much for bringing that up, because the first folio really is essential to that, and is essential to our idea of, it's like, this is how you can read Shakespeare instantly, because if you can read these clues that the folio puts there for you. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, but to the actor, there are a lot of challenges dealing with the first folio, because there's a lot of spelling that differs from modern spelling. To me, unarguably, there are errors, a lot of errors that the modern editors have seen fit to correct. Now, some people think modern editors have gone too far or way too far. However, it's undeniable that there are plenty of errors in the first folio. Just maybe in terms of like strange words that aren't spelled, that are, just what is that word? And the modern editors have changed it into something that certainly makes more sense. That's one kind of thing, or just punctuation that seems odd, and things like that. Words that have been changed around that modern editors have seen fit to change. And then the other big thing, would be punctuation, like either adding or subtracting more commas, either in the modern editions. Some people think the modern editors have gone too far. And then one other thing that's really quite interesting in the first folio texts is there are a lot of phrases within a character's speech that are parenthesized, and there that I've ever seen, no modern edition keeps the parentheses that were in the first folio. And actually, I think the parentheses are kind of interesting. And you could speculate on what the parentheses mean. I mean, I've experimented with the parentheses being like sort of like the characters kind of having an out loud parenthetical thought, really all to themselves a lot of times, not always, but it often seems like that. That's one of the most interesting things. So all these differences.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a lot of differences, and there are definitely mistakes in the folio, and things like that. But I think that one of the things, one of the things that sort of drives me crazy about the folio is the additional e's at the end of words, which will often throw people off. When it's like, I have a suit unto your majesty. I have a suite unto your majesty. I mean, it's like, they didn't even have suites back in Shakespeare's time. You're lucky you had one room, so forget about a suite. So, so there are definitely challenges with that. But I think that in terms of a lot of things, it helps us to look at the ways that we look at language differently than they did. I mean, to be aware that this was 100 years before we really had the first English dictionary. So spelling was more idiosyncratic. His own signatures, it doesn't look like he spelled his name the same way on any of those, and it's not the way we spell his name. But if you sound them out most times it will make sense. And there are things, where editors have played quite a useful role in cleaning things up. But then there are also things where they've changed it, and what they've changed has become accepted. And it's like, it's like Shakespeare is so far in the public domain, you can look at it, you can look at the modern text, you can look at the folio text, you can say, this is what works for me. And so that's what it is. But I think that the folio can give you another perspective that a lot of ways can put you on the path to what is happening more quickly. So that's part of why we like to do that.
Well, another big difference is all the capitalizations of words in the first folio that are not carried through in the modern edition. And you have an opinion about that, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely do. I've definitely found that in the instant Shakespeare readings, that the capitalization really is so key in terms of when you're not sure what something means, that if you emphasize those capitalized words, a lot of times it will make sense. Sometimes it even, like, if you don't understand what you're saying, but you hit the words, it makes sense to the audience, even if you don't get it, which is, I think, sometimes why Shakespeare endures is in certain ways, that if you say the words and if you let the words work on you, they will work for your audience. So
yeah, well, I mean, for the actor, getting used to first folio text can take quite a while. But personally, I've come around to the thinking that now I generally end up, when I'm preparing for one of our readings, because I do a lot of preparation for every reading, and I compare first folio against modern text, because the modern text can help me understand the sense of what the character's saying, because the modern editors have kind of tidied it up, so it's, oh, okay, yeah, that's what it means. But then sometimes what modern editors have done, if I think something in the first folio, it makes plausible sense to me, even though modern editors have changed it some, like the wording a little bit, or changed a significant word. If the original stuff makes, if I can find a way that it makes sense to me, I go with the first folio. Even though modern editors have changed something, a significant word they've changed. But if it makes sense, I just say, okay, I'm going with it. That's one thing.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the thing. It's the fun of playing with the words and sharing those choices. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, it's a challenge, but it is pretty interesting to be exposed to the first folio. I mean, what do you think, Steve? You have any? What do you say about the first folio versus modern editions?
Very few actors are going to bother to put the work into translating from the first folio
Right.
to modern English. They're not going to do it. So it's reading directly from the first folio is great, but that's for Shakespeare aficionado. That's not for your ordinary people.
Aha.
Well, I'm hopeful that it's like by doing it and getting exposed to it, people can learn how to um, how to just read a text with for what it is and see the differences. But yeah, I mean there's a reason why there's so many texts like the Folger and other good texts which give you notes and context to understand things. And but
Oh
as
yeah, those are
you
great.
get more familiar with those things, then a lot of times the words can just do it for you.
I have a question for
Yeah.
either one of you. Let's see. Many years ago, I interviewed Peter Hall, and I could not believe this. He said, in 100 years, Shakespeare won't be comprehensible. It'll be like Chaucer. I know that there are revisions of Shakespeare. Are there any good ones? Any that you approve of?
No.
Hey,
I don't. I mean, there have been various people over the years doing things to clean up and tidy Shakespeare. I mean, from all of the people who rewrote him, were giving happy endings to Romeo and Juliet and King Lear
oh, well, that's
and things like that. But also, yeah, there are other sorts of things. There's the no fear Shakespeare. There's other things to try and do that. And I've just every time I do it, I mean, even for the I haven't seen it yet. The recent Romeo and Juliet, where the writer, I mean, like changed some lines and people really got upset about it. I'm one of those people who gets upset about it because I mean, I can understand certain things in a production where you say, okay, well, we got to change this so that people understand what's happening. But I don't think that modernizing real. I love adaptations. I think there've been a lot of really great sort of. I mean, 10 Things I Hate About You. It's not Taming of the Shrew, but it is. I mean, it works in its own thing, and these other things can work as their own things. But Shakespeare can work as Shakespeare if you use the language. And my sort of feeling is that it's like rather than trying to dumb down Shakespeare, why don't we try and raise people up to be able to see the possibilities of this language? And I mean, because we don't. I mean one of the most useful things, insights that I've gotten was from Kristen Linklater, who talked about the idea that we think of like Shakespeare's language as old. That's from the old time. But it's like Shakespeare's language is the beginning of early modern English. It was 400 years younger than the English we do now, and that's why it's gotten cut off as we've been. There's so many. Don't get me started on other sorts of things about that. But it's just we're not used to speaking with the kind of richness. And I mean, this isn't really the way that people. This was always heightened language. This was heightened language for the people.
Even then, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's part of what it is, and that's part of why sometimes, and this my hand will rather the multitudinous seas incarnadine, making the green one red. So that he can take like using multitudinous seas incarnadine and like, yes, I understand what that means, and then saying making the green one red. That he sometimes can use language in ways that you're using these more Latinate and complicated words, and then coming back with the simple sort of Anglo-Saxon explanation as well. And so that's part of the way he wrote, because he was, and I think there's also why he can still appeal to a modern ear if you give it the chance, is that it was at a time when it was a time before we kind of broke between low and high art, and it was both of those things are there. That's why the clowns are so important to Shakespeare, and a lot of people just don't get them or appreciate them. But I mean,
The clowns are hard.
they definitely are, and they're definitely challenging, and it's not helping
Love
that
it. I
these
love
are
how
all
hard
of
the
these
clowns are.
contemporary jokes that, oh yeah, that. I mean, it's like, no, it is really difficult. And but
The nobles are much easier than the clowns.
yeah.
But Steve, were you? I mean, I'm assuming you're saying that there. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen this, but I imagine. I mean, is there some kind of like modern paraphrasing of Shakespeare
Oh,
that
yes.
sometimes gets done?
Mhm.
Just paraphrasing it,
Correct. Yeah.
more modern
Yes.
words.
Very straightforward, I think. I haven't read
Yeah.
them. But that's the impression that I got, Paul.
Yeah, but I think Paul's right. I mean, this is poetry, it's heightened language. I mean, it's the actor's job to really try to bring that to life in contemporary terms. That's what I think the job is. Um, so you don't make I don't know, you try to bring the meaning out and the yeah, that's why I mean it's not easy. And it's really hard for actors when they first get exposed to Shakespeare and audiences. Well, I mean, you look at it on the page and you're going, what is this? It's all backwards and sideways and
Right.
poetry, poetry, poetry.
Hmm.
And fairly obsolete words quite a bit.
But it's not only, if I can play the devil's advocate for him,
Please.
not only heightened language with strange words. It's deliberately challenging. Ben Jonson is straightforward. You can read him and you don't have to puzzle over a line. And he has heightened language. But I don't know if he ever deliberately challenges you for the sake of poetry and deliberate ambiguity.
Ben Jonson was pretty much contemporary with Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near as familiar.
It's like Ben Jonson is like Comedy of Errors, or one of the early ones, which are more straightforward, I think, in both their verse and prose. Isn't that right?
Mm-hmm. Again, I mean, we've done a few. We've done Volpone. We did The Alchemist. I'm not as familiar though with Ben Jonson's work as much. I do know that is like. I mean, it was amazing when we did a reading of Volpone, which you think of as this comedy, and it is a comedy, and there's a lot of really terrific writing in it. But it's 3 hours long when you do the whole thing, So it's,
But am I right in thinking that Shakespeare started out more straightforward and less challenging than he developed into?
Oh yeah, I think that's yeah. Yeah, no, that is definitely. I mean, you sort of see from the early plays, especially because a lot of this kind of more comedies were earlier on with things like Comedy of Errors, Taming of the Shrew, the early history plays, and then I mean, like I think a lot of people see as, I mean, that key year. Well, we don't know the exact year, but like maybe when with Romeo and Juliet and Midsummer Night's Dream, that those really sort of, as he sort of got really, I mean, was making a name for himself, and then as he got actually sort of, then really when you see with Hamlet, and then through the last of his comedies from his earlier period, like Much Ado About Nothing, What You Will, All's Well That Ends, that then he was getting into much more sort of complex, different sorts of things. with things like, you know, Measure for Measure, and where we get into Troilus and Cressida, the sort of where you get into the more yeah, and I think that's also reflective in his verse as well, that it becomes more sort of irregular and complex in those later plays.
And
But how could you blame an artist for that?
No blame, just an observation.
Yeah.
That's part
But he
of
was
how it
he was
developed.
emulating his, you know, contemporaries and somewhat older playwrights that he admired earlier on in his career.
Mhm.
But he did develop.
He could strike out on, you know, make his own path.
He did develop into the language of the fool in King Lear, where I think he leaves everyone behind. Even the glosses say, we can't explain what the fool is talking about here. It's not easily translated into rational English. That's really spacey.
Yeah, that fool is like not. Why is he called a fool? It doesn't seem like a regular fool at all. Not very much, anyway. I mean, it's like Bob Dylan pointing his finger at society or something, and the nobility. Sort of.
Well, you know, it's like you got to have the one guy who's important for him to make happy. I mean, he obviously was making happy, so that. But I don't know. Anyways, so do you guys have some Shakespeare or something you want to do so that we can get to some actual text, or should I go first? You want me to?
You should absolutely go first.
Alrighty then. I will share with you one of my favorite speeches of Shakespeare. And I mean, yeah, I've got hundreds of favorites, but this is one of them because it's from King John, and it's the bastard, and he's just talking because he was just all set for them to be this war, and they've worked out a peace, but this is. Anyways, I also think, well, I'll talk a little bit about it afterwards. Mad world, mad kings, mad composition. John, to stop Arthur's title in the whole, hath willingly departed with a part. And France, whose armor conscience buckled on, whom zeal and charity brought to the field as God's own soldier, rounded in the ear with that same purpose changer, that sly devil, that broker that still breaks the pate of faith, that daily break vow, he that wins of all, of kings, of beggars, old men, young men, maids, who, having no external thing to lose but the word maid, cheats the poor maid of that smooth-faced gentleman, tickling commodity. Commodity! The bias of the world who of itself is poised well, made to run even upon even ground, till this advantage, this vile drawing bias, this sway of motion, this commodity makes it take head from all indifferency, from all direction, purpose, course, intent. And this same bias, this commodity, this bawd, this broker, this all-changing word, clapped on the outward eye of fickle France, hath drawn him from his own determined aid, from a resolved and honorable war, to a most base and vile concluded peace. And why rail I on this commodity? But for because he hath not wooed me yet. Not that I have the power to clutch my hand when his fair angels would salute my palm, but my hand is unattempted yet, like a poor beggar raileth on the rich. Well, whiles I'm a beggar, I will rail and say there is no sin but to be rich, and being rich, my virtue then shall be to say there is no vice but beggary.
Hmm.
Since kings break faith upon commodity, gain be my lord, for I will worship thee. So that for me also partly is Shakespeare's talking about capitalism. So
That is fantastic.
Quite
That is
clearly, yeah.
absolutely terrific.
it's such a great speech. I
Yes,
Are radical speeches in Shakespeare.
really, yeah.
yes. And it's certainly not Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson would never go off on a nice little recitative for himself the way Shakespeare does. And enjoy the moment and expand on it. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, because that's the thing why for Shakespeare, I mean, that he really feels to me like a playwright who, as with Moliere, it's informed by the fact that he's a performer, and he would do things, put in things that are fun for a performer to do because he was a performer who knew how to have fun with things. So that's I mean that's part of my view of how I understand Shakespeare.
I remember that speech.
So what was that character? Who was that character speaking again in King John?
He's the bastard. He's actually
Oh.
he's the bastard. Supposedly he's the bastard son of Richard the Lionheart. So he's actually Philip is his name at the beginning, and he's referred to then as bastard, but they call him Richard. So he sort of changes his name, but he's the bastard. He's really the best part. He's really terrific because he's not a bad guy. But he's very much making the political sausage, and going up in the world as he's following what the king tells him to do.
Cool. Yes.
Yeah.
And yet another play in the context with Britain and France tussling back and forth.
Oh God.
Yeah. King John, I mean, I was in a production of that with the Actors Shakespeare Company, and Colin Ryan played the bastard, and he was so good in that. And it really is such an interesting play. And it's such a good play. It also deals with the fact of when that John turns away from the Pope, and sort of because there's that whole part of it as well. And all of these various sorts of, I mean, it's very political and it's very religious, and it's not like with King John is just, he's no Henry V, but he's no Richard III either, so, it's sort of, but he dies on stage at the end.
Where does it fall in the chronology of Shakespeare?
I was going to ask the same question.
Yeah. Interesting. It's interesting in that it's thought to be probably in this sort of middle, I think around like the turn of the century, 1600, 1601, something like that, sort of like around the same time that as he was doing like Hamlet and started to move into the more complex things. But
I see.
Julius Caesar.
Yeah. But yeah, it is a really really good play. So does someone have something else they would like to share?
Mark, do you want to share or shall I go?
Well, I decided only this morning to I'm very, very unfamiliar with the poetry, the sonnets or the poetry. So I said, oh, I should look at that. I looked at one poem and I studied it some. It's they all have numbers, right? I'm very unfamiliar. CXLIV, Two Loves I Have.
144 for those of us using the numbering system.
They all have 14
That's
lines,
what I have.
apparently. That shows you what I know. Okay. Let me just look at this for a second. Two loves I have, of comfort and despair, which, like two spirits, do suggest me still. The better angel is a man right fair, the worser spirit a woman colored ill. To win me soon to hell, my female evil tempteth my better angel from my side, and would corrupt my saint to be a devil, wooing his purity with her foul pride. And whether that my angel be turned fiend, suspect I may, yet not directly tell, but being both from me, both to each friend, I guess one angel in another's hell. Yet this shall I ne'er know, but live in doubt, till my bad angel fire my good one out. It's nifty.
Yeah,
It is,
very good. Nice job. Thank you.
and it's difficult. It's a
Yeah.
relatively difficult
It's
sonnet.
not to a person. That's what I mean. A lot of them are that way, right?
This I say, but not directly. Suspect I, but not directly tell.
Yeah.
Here again is having it, letting us
It
know.
sounds like it's yeah, it's being in, you know, in you know, not sure of what to trust in their own, his own nature, his own thinking
Mhm.
about these possible two spirits. Although he characterizes one as a fair man and then as a evil woman, evil female, but then he kind of turns it into, well, one could be the other, or, and I don't know for sure, and I'll never know until something decisive happens. I don't know. A lot of ways you can probably interpret this.
So the sense, aside from the words, is more complex than the sonnets to the dark, what is the dark-haired lady?
The Dark Lady. Well, and I mean, this is believed to sort of lay out the two people. The fair youth is the youth,
Oh,
and the Dark Lady was, well, yeah, is the two loves. That these were the two loves. The idea that it goes back, that some of the things are to this young man, and others that are to I mean, actually, they're not really ones like I mean, that about the Dark Lady are they're not really to the Dark Lady. I don't think there are any that are directed to her, but they're ones that are directed to him, you know. And I think this one is, it's not, it's more sort of to the audience in general, really, as opposed to being to one specific person.
Right.
but you think it fits in with those two? I do know that much about the sonnets, that it's surmised that there were two actual people in his life that he wrote a lot of these to, right?
Yeah, well, and this sonnet is actually usually what they look to as this sort of, as one of the central cruxes of this, by taking from the two loves I have, you know, and so yeah. I mean, I'm not as expert on all of the sonnets, but it is, I think sometimes, yeah, there's just such wonderful um, insights in the way he does it. And
Just what I've heard from you two informs a lot of my interpretation of it.
Oh.
Yes. Mhm.
But he does seem to be of divided mind somewhat.
Hmm.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Okay, I found that one this morning. I
Yeah.
don't have a lot of experience with this sonnet or any
Well
of them.
prepared.
Well, instant. That's the thing. You find things by diving into them, even when you don't totally understand them, and you so that you'll understand them better, and that's a worthwhile way to engage with text, and it's useful. And I think that that's also one of the other things about instant Shakespeare is that speaking the words aloud, you experience them in a different way than
Yeah.
just reading them on the page. And I mean that there's a physical life to them, and that's got to be respected.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Okay. So, Steve, do you have something you'd like to share with us?
Well, I'm told that when you audition these days, you do a tape, you do a video, and I've never done it. So this is my I've never done this before. I'm gonna try some new things. Um, let's see if this is worth doing. Let me see. Day and night he wrongs me. Every hour he flashes into one gross crime or other that sets us all at odds. I'll not endure it. His nights grow riotous, and himself upbraids us on every trifle. If you fall slack with former services, you shall do well. The fault of it I'll answer. Idle old man that still would manage those authorities that he hath given away. Now by my life, old fools are babes again and must be used with checks as flatteries when they are seen abused. Remember what I tell you. And let his knights have colder looks among you. What grows of it no matter, advise your fellows so. I would from hence breed occasion, and I shall, that I may speak. I'll write straight to my sister to hold my very course.
Excellent. Well done.
Familiar speech.
Yes, yes. Goneril from King Lear. Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I was pretty sure it was Lear.
Yeah. Should I include the bit taking out the contacts?
I don't know that I found that maybe a little distracting. I don't know, but
I think so too, Steve. Maybe that's just a bit too much, but the other things you were doing, yeah, I'd consider
yeah,
it.
the
Yeah.
other activity of like getting undress. I mean, I thought that worked well,
Okay, I'll work on that. Thank you for the note.
yeah, very good work. That is a good one.
Well, you know, I'm planning on trying the same thing. Trying to do some auditions on tape of some Shakespeare stuff. Yeah, I'm planning on that myself.
I guess that actors have a cache of videos that they've made. I mean, when I auditioned, you stood there with your headshot and that was it. I mean, it was,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is that you can. It's very easy to tape yourself with various programs, including with Zoom. You know, you can with your own free Zoom account. You know, you can start a meeting and record it, and you're the only one in the meeting, and you can try various things and put together tapes that way. Also, I think like
Oh,
QuickTime as well if you're on a Mac that you can just sort of record yourself doing that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, this technology, it just, humanity goes forward, you know.
right.
So we gotta try and figure out how to do this. And we do a lot of Zoom readings here and Zoom events, but yeah, I don't, just trying to do the best I can. But So, are there any other thoughts and observations or things that you'd like to share about that?
No,
Well, Paul, I mean, I know this is a real chore, mostly for you, to get us set up to do the live readings at the libraries. I mean, what with having to have a contract and get in touch with these people who seem to be difficult to get in touch with, people in charge of the branches or whose ever permission needs to be gotten. And I mean, I've been to a lot of readings this year, and the staff has always been really, really nice.
Yeah, no, it's great. The staff at the New York Public Library has been really great. I mean, sometimes we have things where they had to sort of kick us out with Richard III because it was going a little long. But
Right.
yeah, we have to be respectful. We're very grateful for the New York Public Library for providing these spaces, and it's just wonderful that we've gotten through. That we've been doing things for so many years. There are a lot of the branches like Jefferson Market, Riverside, other ones where we've done the entire play there. I mean, the entire canon of all of the plays there. And I think that actually probably next year we should be able to complete it with the Bloomingdale Library, and so that will
Oh,
it's very it's great to do that, but it's also challenging because the libraries are cutting back on so many things. They don't pay us to do these readings, so we're free for them. And so if they've got the space free, it's a way that they can have some programming, which is good. But yeah, it is challenging. We are also going to. I haven't really done enough in terms of looking into other spaces. Some people have suggested certain spaces that might be good. There are also various public outdoor spaces that can be used in New York. I mean, during warmer times, although, it's still having to find the right balance between being open for everything and still being safe when we're still, even though people don't like to talk about it, people are still getting a lot of COVID. So, but yeah, there are things, and it is good when we can get to do things in person. Even though, yes, that is even more for me than doing it on Zoom, because also mainly because I have to make books, and the books that sometimes don't make it to the libraries. But
oh.
anyways, yeah. So
Well, we have a contingent that really prefers live, but I'm wondering, I mean, are people just finding it more convenient to do the Zoom? Certainly less work, especially for you, Paul. I'm a little worried about that, but
well, how have they been attended? The live, in person,
sometimes
live.
we have the playmasters have had trouble filling all the roles in the live, at least the live ones. I know that.
yeah,
The
yeah,
audience.
we have not been having great audiences. I mean, we've had a few. I
Here
mean, I
and
don't
there,
think there's that many.
it's always like one or two people sometimes that just appear, or they come as guests, invited guests, sometimes.
Isn't that strange? Because you used to do pretty well.
Yeah, well, tell me about that. I'd heard that there used to be,
Oh
actual.
yeah, well, when we did them at the Mid Manhattan branch, we would have, yeah. I mean, well, because the Mid Manhattan branch had a lot of events, and people were used to coming out for events, and they'd be at a reasonable time, like 6 o'clock on a weeknight, which people after work would stop by, and yeah, we'd have lots and lots of yeah, 60 to 80 people for those. But unfortunately, at the other branches, we usually um, don't get too many, and that is something else that would be a nice thing to be able to work at building, because it is a chance. to get some free theater. So
Well, we have to start now. Okay, so now beginning of the year, I have to start all over again in terms of wooing the library administrator who's responsible for approving it. Another
well, I mean, no, it's good we've got relationships with all of these libraries, and they're including some libraries that have been closed and that we're supposed to reopen this next year, but maybe won't reopen this next year, such as Muhlenberg, because of all of these cuts to the libraries. But yeah, so I'll reach out to them. We'll probably start on Zoom because we usually did not. Our traditional, we were, well, when we did the first one, we did them. It started in March. We did the in 2000 when we did them, because I remember we did Julius Caesar on the Ides of March. So we did them those 12 days. It was, I believe, yeah, the 13th through the whatever, and 25th or something, and so we usually don't start our live ones until the spring, but I am going to try and do more early ones on Zoom, just so that we can keep things moving along, because November,
yeah, of course,
we have a bunch of plays we had to do to get through all of it. So
yeah, of course, of course. I was gonna say something.
so
Never mind.
okay. Well, Steve, show us. I want you to do. You just brought out a book that you've done, your book of directors. So I
thank
do
you
want
for
you
asking.
to let people know about that.
Book.
Stage Voices, interviews with 28 theater directors worldwide,
Wow.
including, is there Nick Eichner, Peter Schumann of Bread and Puppet, Judith Molina, Robert Wilson, Anne Bogart, Julie Taymor, Robert Icke, the foremost directors in Argentina and Brazil, Bart Scher, Andre Bishop,
Wow.
Ivo Van Hove, and several others. Go on to stagevoices.net, and you'll be given little excerpts from each interview.
Oh, excellent. That's great. Congratulations on that. I know that's so important, because I think it is really important to be able to talk about theater and to learn from these people who've had such success.
And they all say different things in answer to the same question. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
So that's what I want people to learn. There's no right way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's there's no right way to play Hamlet. There's always each individual's way to play Hamlet, which can have an infinitely different variety.
Hey, Steve, I wrested the chance into my hands to play Hamlet this year, just to do it,
Well, sure.
And yeah, I just said I'm gonna really know these lines. I'm really gonna, know what I'm saying, and that's really all I want to do with it. I'm not gonna, be brilliant or anything. I'm just gonna really know everything I'm saying, to all 1,200 to however many lines it is, right? So I did it. I was pleased. I was happy with it. So it checked it off the list, right?
Oh, sure. It's a trip to do Hamlet.
Yeah. And I got a great bunch of people that helped me do it. I'm Stage Voices. I'm looking this up. .com, right?
.net.
So it was great. It was like in September. And Actually, my friend Leighton helped me videotape it, and also Macbeth that Ken did. We got to get that put up. What's going on here?
Yeah, we should talk about that at some point to
Yeah, I
figure
mean,
out
it doesn't. You don't have to give me the keys to YouTube. Maybe there's another way we can do it. Get it up there. Just get them on.
Yeah, no, that would be good. I would like to do that. Yeah, we'll figure that out. How to do that.
What is it? Staged voices?
Stagevoices.net.
Stage voices. I
Stagevoices.
put a D in. I thought you said stage.
No.
I'm just Googling because otherwise I'm going to forget about it.
Cover was not my design, thank you.
Stage voices. Oh, here's what I was thinking I wanted to say before. .com. I think it's super terrific that this, here it is. Okay, I got it. I'll look at it. So we had this really terrific veteran actor, director, producer that people didn't know, I don't think, before. Frank Farrell just appear out of nowhere this past winter. Isn't that right? And really injected a lot of energy and a bunch of new actors into instant Shakespeare.
Oh yeah, it's so great.
It's a great thing that we had happen.
Yeah, it's wonderful when you get somebody like that who just sort of gets excited about the idea and is excited about, because he also, in addition to doing the Maxwell Anderson plays, he also did Timon of Athens and I believe another one as well this year of Shakespeare.
Yeah, Antony and Cleopatra we did, and
right, that was it. Yeah, and
I said yes to Frank every chance I could because I thought it was great that Frank was putting so much energy in.
Yeah,
so bringing in all these actors, and a lot of actors I met through Frank, I asked them to help me with Hamlet. Really impressive, good actors, and I was so thrilled that they said yes. And yeah, I mean, so Frank is, it's great Frank appear.
Good to hear. Yes.
Yeah, it really is, and it's really great also to get a chance. I mean, to get exposed to more different things as well, as he does with the Maxwell Anderson.
Yeah, I did. I've done two of his the Maxwell Anderson readings.
What Maxwell Andersons have you done?
Maxwell they did What Price Glory, and the one before that they also
called Sea Wife, I think. It's an early one called Sea Wife. That one's really terrific. I liked it better than What Price Glory was actually a collaboration between Maxwell Anderson and another writer whose name I can't remember right now. It's set in World War I in France, U.S. Army, U.S. Army, barracks, platoon. World War I in France. Has French-speaking character. He's got one character that speaks nothing but French. Pretty much character. The father of this young woman, who very attractive woman, who the two lead male characters both had these serious dalliances with, and then the father comes in and starts demanding marriage and money.
Yeah.
He only speaks French, not one word of English.
And when
a lot of French.
When were these written?
About 1925, 26 for What Price Glory, and then Sea Wife, I think it's called, The Sea Wife, a little earlier, 22 or 23. That one's really terrific. It's very impressionistic, and it's set in a remote New England coastal town. And strange things happen.
Oh dear.
Wow. Well, yeah. So it is so good to have that, and also, as I say, we've got other collaborations, and we're so excited to be able to do plays that people want to do if they want to take on sort of play mastering and putting it together. I mean, we've done other things over the years in terms of a lot of times. Um, Around Bastille Day, we might do reading of The Green Cockatoo by Arthur Schnitzler, which
That
takes
was
place
wonderful.
in the
That
play.
was such a
Oh,
wonderful
right, we
read.
did that this past year, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Got it. Yeah.
it's kind of become a little bit of a tradition. There's that. There's other ones that we've done. We also have an idea that we may try and do some other things this year. Tony Scheinman had suggested doing a series of revenge tragedies. So, I mean, Hamlet is technically a revenge tragedy, as are the Spanish tragedy, which we have done readings of, and I actually have a little edition of. And so, yeah, lots of fun things to come in 2024 for our 25th season. And as I say, we still have a few more readings this year. We've got the in-person reading of Romeo and Juliet on Saturday, and then next week will be the on next Thursday on Zoom, we will be doing The Winter's Tale. And then next Saturday in person, we will be finishing the season with The Tragedy of Cymbeline, which is also, as it is the very last play in the folio. So,
Oh, that's why we do it in December.
yeah, it's one of the later ones.
So Paul, how's Ken doing? Have you talked to him lately?
Well, I think we can just. I'm going to end our live thing for now, and then we can talk a little bit afterwards. So thank you, Mark, Steve. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing Shakespeare and.